Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from, because I have two of my friends here, and we are really going to talk about a whole bunch of things. It's a fairly free-flowing conversation. It's a conversation on various themes that have come up in the course of our work. And, the context of this is sometime back, I had built something along with ZingHR called the Outcomation Index, which was how do we measure the impact of HR. So this was really all about the Outcomation Index. Instead of everybody introducing themselves, we are going to make an attempt to introduce each other. Rituparna Chakrabarti. Rituparna was heading Team Lease. She was one of the co-founders. She loves travel. The little thread roll for which you use for kites, which is you can see in the background.
Always that way, my chat with Abhijit is always, that's why, so fruitful, because after I speak to him, I think for the next 3 months, I feel very good about myself. So thank you so much.
Uh, I know Abhijit for the last 10, 12 years. Abhijit has been a friend, advisor, and worked across the spectrum of multinationals, including Microsoft. Now settled in, we have exported him to the US to do some work there. And now he's working with us on various aspects. The best part of Abhijit is as fresh across 24 hours. And like Ritu said, he puts people to ease. Whenever I meet an HR professional in the industry, they all say, Abhijit has taught me. And I think 90% of the people I meet in the HR who are heading HR saying, no, Abhijit has taught me. So
First time I met probably a decade back. And, it's the fact that we are all today talking about HR tech, HR SaaS, but Prasad essentially thought about the potential and the opportunity this particular realm, this particular industry can possibly have way back, much before many people in the talent ecosystem were probably even thinking about it. And I think through the ups and downs, I think I've seen Prasad stay resilient, grow ZingHR to what it is today. And the fact that recently I saw the smooth transition that ZingHR is happening to entering into the world of AI, it really fills my heart with a lot of delight and satisfaction that you're actually taking the lead. I wish his kind of passion and that's the kind of fun I think I wish for every entrepreneur and founders out there.
When you think about one of the big things everybody talks about is AI. How is that changing what the board cares about?
Yes, so far, most boards have been focused on financial performance, on risk management, on thinking about long-term strategy. But what I see is that AI very quickly is evolving into a very integral part of the conversation. And it's becoming an important agenda for many boards to focus on. And I think, to try and explain to you how that essentially is becoming into, turning into a boardroom priority, I think the whole aspect of AI governance and ethical risk, I think it's a very important subject that boards are thinking about because they're realizing that AI is not just about efficiency. Along with it comes a lot of responsibility. So how do we prevent biases in AI? How do we, what are the different kinds of ethical risks while deploying AI in decision making? And so I think these are some of the governance related conversations related to AI I've seen boards engaging in. Also, AI has a competitive advantage. I think clearly the word digital, and especially I've seen how the world was before COVID and after COVID. Before COVID, digital transformation was like a cool thing, nice to have, and we know what has happened today. So I think today AI is a clear competitive differentiator. So often boards are asking management that are we using AI to unlock new markets? Are we using AI to personalize experience with customers? Are we trying to make that as a key tool to differentiate from competitors? So workforce transformation. I think AI, most people are worried about AI replacing people, but AI isn't just about replacing tasks. It's also trying to redefine many of the job roles within organizations. So boards are essentially trying to think beyond headcount and focus on what we call the skill count. So are we reskilling our workforce fast enough, and how are we leveraging AI to kind of the adoption of AI to kind of ensure that this is happening at workplaces? Also, regulatory compliance and data privacy. I think that's a much talked about topic, and this is something which is going to be very key and is becoming key for boards. So all the kind of AI related regulations which are evolving worldwide, there's a lot of chitter chatter around it. EU is taking huge, is leapfrogging into kind of devising AI Act. What's going to happen in India? What should we anticipate and be prepared for? So I think boards have started scrutinizing AI policies as much as they are scrutinizing financial states. Right? So I think what I'm seeing is that clearly boardrooms are shifting thanks to AI from a compliant focused mindset to a foresight driven one. And I think that's the key change that we should all be witnessing in more and more boardrooms.
Possibly looking at moving beyond efficiency, which is, I think, a first step that, how can you do something faster? If I were to use another phrase, which is that how do you get into blank spaces, things that you haven't done. So really redefining business models and discovering new customer types. These are some of the ways in which boards are having conversations with the organizations to say, this is how you can change the business. Is another aspect. Prasad, would you say that you've seen something similar happening with your customers? What have you seen?
Boards have changed their narrative, but there's also another interesting thing. Many boards are as vague about what is to be done, but they know for sure that AI has to be adopted. So there is a lot of responsibility on the next level management team to come out what can AI do. Okay, if we leave about the hype of saying I want to upskill, I want to automate, I think there's a lot of responsibility of an HR and HR tech people to say how it's going to change the business, how it's going to even change the top line. It might even change the business line of the people. And of course, like Ritu said, skill building competencies, everyone, at least we do about 1,200 customers. I can tell you without exception, everyone is now paranoid saying, how do I change the company's DNA, including themselves. The good part is I'm seeing a lot of boards wanting to get educated themselves and changing. I will not be able to give name, but I know one of the largest companies, their chairman and MD is saying, I want to learn AI and say how it's going to impact my teams, my core level teams. So I think it's a huge change which is imperative, and boards, fortunately, boards are now taking it positively and making the change happen.
It's moving from customer experience design and employee experience design. So there is a lot of focus on what you can do to design experiences, whether for customers or for employees.
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody is running quite quickly in the direction where quickly they want to now figure out how generative AI can be used to kind of improve customer experience. But before that, I think, Abhijit, we must admit that still the mindset is, of course, is that, because of the existence of generative AI and AI, can we quickly make that as a reason for us to reduce costs? And especially on the customer experience side. So that's, I think, is a bit of a problem, which I'm seeing that in the harakiri, you're trying to reduce your customer experience team while the entire model of actually deploying it to replace the human, which is currently providing the customer experience, is fully not created or is not working optimally. So I think that's the reason there is, I think right now, many organizations are going through the phase where there is a huge vacuum when it comes to customer experience because you've let go of the people, but your AI has really not scaled up, or your investments in AI have not scaled up to be able to actually replace it. And I think that's where boards have to honestly delve deeper, that yes, you are providing shareholder value, you are honestly showing that you're reducing cost, your per unit efficiencies are going up, but what's happening to customers? Is that at the cost and expense of the loyalty and the long tail of customers that you've been building because experience is suffering? So I actually think that it's a great opportunity for sure, but I think it needs to be timed well. It needs to be done in a full-hearted manner. Right now, I feel that you're trying to dabble in a few experiments here and there, but there is no full commitment towards using AI because we must understand AI deployment is expensive. Of course, DeepSeek is obviously asking all the right questions, whether it is that expensive or not. But till we are clear about it, I think we should stay committed. We need to do the full hog, and I'm sure and I'm very confident that one will benefit, and the organizations who are doing it, Abhijit, are actually benefiting. I mean, I'm on a few financial services boards. I mean, how beautifully they are able to leverage the open AI infrastructure that Bhashini or Bhasa, is that the language open architecture created, the multilingual architecture, and how that is being used to communicate with customers, because English cannot be the only one language where you're becoming richer, even a country like India, where you're reaching out to like more, God knows how many, 30 plus languages. So how essentially you give the full experience, where the people who earlier used to call and speak to someone in a Kannada or a Telugu or a Hindi doesn't feel left out because they are forced to talk in English. So I guess this is essentially where you have to really go deep and push the right buttons and nudge the management to be fully committed to using AI to the advantage of customer experience. I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for. That's what I'm seeing in customer experience now.
Absolutely. And this is really like saying that you need to do performance management of AI, to really start looking at what is it that AI is really value adding.
Oh, absolutely. I think you can't use this like a status symbol. AI is not that. AI, the when you become committed to AI, you have to be prepared for everything, the consequences of it, the fact that in the short run, it's costing a few jobs of some individuals within the organization. But does that mean that? But it also means you're creating more new different job roles. You are having to create a different ecosystem of skills and capabilities within the organizations now. And hence, is there a plan to even develop it? Because you can't, it's very easy to let go of people, but then there are new job roles emerging. Do we have the skills internally or externally to be able to fulfill those? So I guess organizations have to think this through, plan, and keep a long sight on it. AI is not something that is fashionable just. AI can actually transform businesses, provided you actually first yourself understand how it can benefit your organization, what aspects of it, to what extent, and then take a step forward. Otherwise, just flippantly using AI, or we are using AI, we are using machine learning, because I've heard a lot of that. But what exactly are you using it for? Do people internally understand? Is everyone in the organization committed to making AI happen? From an efficiency perspective, because it's otherwise, I mean, if you're not doing it, I don't think you will see the result of it, and you'll flounder. You'll spend a lot of money unnecessarily, and there'll be no execution at the end of the day. So I think we all know what AI can do by now, by and large, I feel. Or at least people who wish to know really will know, because there's enough information available.
Put one interesting element that I came across, that I was reading the LinkedIn Workplace Learning Report of 2025. The fascinating thing is the companies which are doing well, who are at the forefront of AI adoption, have another element which is in common, which is that they have all invested in upskilling and providing career opportunities for their employees. So, really, career development and adoption of AI seem to be correlated. So those who've done it well are the ones who have really prepared the employees, through communication, helping them play with AI, learn how their roles are going to change, doing that
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah, I just want to add, Abhijit, what is also happening is people are able to do job role changes laterally, and AI is really accelerating that. Somebody from the technology side is wanting to go to customer care, or somebody going to the marketing. I think AI is enabling people with all those tools. I think it is democratizing the people's choices. I think very, very rapidly. Abhijit, I just wanted to ask you, you have been now almost in all the continents, you have worked here, you have worked the US. How is there any difference in how people view AI and the implications in, say, in the Asia and maybe in the US? Is it different, or is it?
I think when it comes to any such, technology adoption, it is always along a spectrum, because it involves cost of business cycle changes, communicating to employees, upskilling them, and above all, sort of really driving the change with the customers as well, in terms of how they engage with the organization. All of that is a fairly complex piece. So there are organizations which are a little ahead of the others, and there are, organizations which are a little behind. But one thing is for sure, most people are really trying their level best to integrate this into their world. But I think it helps immensely if the organization first gets the employees and the customers comfortable with what they are trying to do. And I think that's a big step that I see. The ones who are ahead of the game are the ones who have invested in that. That's the only difference that I see.
Mm. Look, I had one interesting question which one of our customers posed to us. We talk of gender diversity and at a very senior level. One very peculiar question came, is AI adoption also seeing different reaction from the different genders at an operating level? I said, good question. We never thought of that. Are different genders viewing AI as an opportunity or a threat differently? Do you have any experience or any sort of views on how it is happening?
I have not seen any clear. Indian workplaces haven't really seen the full throttle impact of what the catastrophe that it can unleash, AI can unleash in the workplaces. I don't know what your experience, Prasad, has been, or Abhijit, yours has been, but I think besides tech, it's not really evident yet. Are organizations becoming more prudent in terms of hiring across gender? It applies to in general hiring, even if you don't bring in diversity into this conversation. So I think people have become, in any case, more cautious in terms of hiring, which means the highs and lows that we used to see earlier, the peaks during high domestic consumption side, I see a lot more plateauing happening. I think probably this is one way that Indian workplaces are gearing up for what potentially can happen once probably AI comes in full implementation across organizations. I think it's too, in India, the problem of diversity itself is so acute in any case. Yeah. I feel before the job market outsiders get wary about AI, they have other bigger issues to deal with. So the thing is that it's not just AI which is impending or is essentially an obstruction for job market outsiders to come into workplaces. There are enough and more. So even if there was no AI, they have a lot of other mountains to climb to be able to come to a situation where you feel it's becoming a lot more equitable. So I don't think, if I were to speak on behalf of the women as one category of the job market outsiders, I think women have so many other battles to fight. So I don't think they are viewing AI as one of those. Are men in workplaces viewing that AI? Possibly, because for them, the only thing that's standing between them and the workplaces and the job roles at this point of time could be one, of course, as market conditions, and the second is probably what AI can do. So I guess it all depends where you sit. And in each gender, there is no equitable standard in India for AI now to become a deciding point.
I feel I got a tilted bias saying that women will be in a better way to find out biases in AI because they're very good at that.
You will know better because you are from that world. You're seeing AI much more closely than probably I am. But I'm glad if that happens.
No, seriously, because see, while we are blindly adopting AI, we are forgetting the biases. I'll just give a small example. And sometimes you lose the naturalness. Other day I met with an accident. I got a fantastic mail from one of my client, and I said, "Wow, it is so hard, good." And then he said, "No, good." I said, "You wrote well." He said, "No, my chat GPT." The problem is, next time he writes anything, I'm not going to believe him. So I think we'll also have to coming back to the next point of how do we remove the biases. How do we ensure that machine learning or AI doesn't take over a lot of our human instincts? While people are saying that the next generation AI will be also able to think and emotions, but I think that's a long way to go. Yeah. And what do you think, both of you, in terms of the emotions and the biases? How do you curtail those?
When you limit the notion of diversity to gender, it becomes a fairly sort of narrow view. That's my first take. I would
Yeah.
actually think about, you expand it to there are so many categories. There's so many categories in which we need to really expand diversity as a thought process because to me, it's a very fundamental business advantage. For example, if you have a multidisciplinary point of view, the world is becoming so complex. It is becoming increasingly harder for somebody with one point of view to really start to solve and understand problems, if whether it comes to understanding the consumer or customer or to understand employees, you kind of really need to have a more broader point of view. Second element that I would offer is to actually start thinking about neurodivergent people. When you think about that, that's another huge category of people. And potentially those are things that we see technology is able to create solutions. So therefore today you see that for places, your phone has settings which allows it to, if you feel giddy while reading stuff on the mobile, you can actually create little elements on your screen which make it more stable for you. The choice of colors, night colors, all kinds of things are being done with the intent of making it accessible to a broader range of people. Technology today, an AirPod also works as a hearing device. So technology as it is coming in is actually, I think, broadening the whole definition of diversity. So I think the feeling is the human part of it. Technology will take care of the diversity part of it.
Just give an example. Like, we have had some people who are visually impaired. One is working in HR. So the entire onboarding is done by him. And one person is other lady is working in finance, but in sales. You know what? The other day came back and says, we introduced AI to the platform, and which he gives recommendations and don't have to go whether it's your claims or appraisals and all. They said, wow, this is helping us. I don't have to even look at it. So I think there's one area where very often I'm talking, AI can help a lot of those people who are like visually impaired or something in a big way, which we can't even imagine because they just can get there. So diversity, you're right. We're not trying to put it a gender. Diversity could be multiple things, and AI can really play a very positive role there.
That ability of genders to fix that potential biases that AI might throw up sometimes. We all know that history of mankind is written by a man. One of the most powerful rulers in India is supposed to be a queen from Kashmir, but history never has a mention of her. So because one of the authors I interacted with recently actually said that she dug deep and she's actually recently written a book on her. But why am I mentioning this is that we all know what's the genetic difference between a man and a woman. And especially when we talk about EQ. And hence, and finally AI is an output of the data that's fed into it, and who feeds the data and whose responses and whose data. I don't know because I don't have access that how much of the data is essentially a man's data that has gone into it. And hence that's the tonality, the response, the lack of emotions or empathy, if at all you see being demonstrated, or the or inherent bias, essentially could be a fragment or it's an outcome of the data input that has gone in. So I think I kind of agree with you, Prasad, that a woman we will be able to spot biases, but you don't need, honestly, a woman to spot the biases, and AI can be actually refined to be bias free if it takes a very holistic and diverse view on the inputs of data that's going into it. So if it is representative, if I may say so, of all kinds of races and genders and kinds of people, like visually impaired people, physically disabled, what I'm trying to say is that the sensitivity is all dependent on the data input that's going.
But I think coming back to the question, Abhijit, boards are now wanting to have an answer. I'm happy to see even HR tech people saying, talking about improving top line and easy AI tool. I want to improve the succession planning of my company. I got 2,000 people. Can AI help in doing a personalized career planning? Can AI help them to move into different job roles? So I think the boundaries are gone beyond the use like bots and answering questions and help desk and all. I think we are much beyond that. And thankfully, boards are now taking to the next level of creating the real impact of mastering AI. Yeah.
The simple way.
Prasad, I actually have been so sorry. I had actually a question for Prasad, given that you touched a little bit, and very curious to know more. That have you seen in any case, like have you seen examples in wherein HR tech leveraging AI, machine learning, be it all, have been able to generate some of these business outcomes? Because you did touch upon it a while back. And have you yourself seen any of that happening?
Absolutely. So it's not just with AI. So I think we are a very firm believer, like Abhijit said, we have something called automation. We are saying let us do automation only. The board's outcomes are there. It could be EBITDA margins, top line, market growth. It could be diversity, whatever. So we are a very firm believer that unless you have business tangible outcomes, just don't do automation. Don't spend money. So a lot of people ask you, do you have bots? I said yes, but what do you want to do? They said, do you have blockchain? I got all those things. Let me tell you a purpose what you do. So what is happening is now, thanks to, I think we have been running sessions, Abhijit, we have been running sessions and educating people. Don't run after technology, just say what is the outcomes. And believe me, it is changing an impact. It is making CXOs think differently. But to utilize for not just automating and spending time on a non-value added activity, which anyway was not required. So AI has to be used very, very prudently, and then it can be a powerful tool.
You would always, whenever you take an initiative, I think the important point, Ritu, I would say, is that to ask the so what question. So, for example, if you say, okay, AI will let me personalize my learning and development process. That's great.
Yeah.
So what? So, in which
Yes.
case, if I say that in doing this, it enables me to, provide a broader career pathway for this one person. Again, if I ask the so what question, it means I'm able to retain that person instead of losing the person to another organization. But more importantly, am I able to now take this multidisciplinary input to create maybe a new opportunity for the organization, which results in a new market or new product or new customer segment, or could be multiple things. I think if you have to dig deeper in any of the things that we do. If you ask for a second order, third order effect, you will be able to find here is how it is impacting, a measurable outcome. I think organizations are a lot more comfortable when they have tangible results, tangible things that they can measure. They're good at managing and counting money. But when you say goodwill, health, all of that, I mean, these are all concepts which are changing. So if you see health, one of the big ways in which it is changing is that we are moving from a fairly reactive to a far more proactive stance. So we are not no longer talking about sick days. We have reduced the number of sick days. Actually, rephrase the question into wellness days. So that's one big element. A lot of things which were taboo earlier, for example, to talk about mental health. It's really, I think that taboo has diminished very largely, and you are able to have these conversations in most organizations. People are able to have these conversations. So there is a shift. But I also think that we can always ask this question of so what? And that so what leads you to the impact. What is the impact of this automation? Um, Even when you look at diversity, I think the organizations, the world in general, whoever designs a product always believes that they have understood the other side, the user, and they don't. I mean, for example, for a little while, I'm right-handed, and for a little bit, I hurt my right hand, and I was trying to use my left hand to cut a piece of paper with scissors, and I just couldn't. And you realize that, my God, I mean, this is what somebody who is left-handed must have to face on a regular basis, because the Most of the products, the scissors, etc., designed for right-handed people. Most of them. Few of
Yeah.
them, there are shops which sell for specifically left-handed people. But something as simple like that, which is so prevalent. So if you really start thinking about it, to build a more inclusive world, you really can start thinking about multiple ways. Somebody who
Yeah.
is not able to do things in this way, instead of saying that, okay, then we leave that person out, how do we bring that person in? That itself creates a new market and a new opportunity to that whole question. So what? I mean, if you say, why should I worry about diversity and inclusion? Why should I? Because to me, this whole process creates a brand new career opportunity. It creates a brand new customer segment. It creates a brand new marketplace. So I think in that sense, it's absolutely something that you can measure in terms of outcomes. So, Ritu, how has performance management changed? Have you seen anything change over the last couple of years? What is different today about performance management?
So I think, I mean, there has been a massive shift, and I think it's been, I personally feel that it was long overdue. I think there has been, we all know that the traditional model is you have annual reviews, you have forced rankings, you have very rigid KPIs. I think given that now we live in a world, and is it already happening at scale in Indian workplaces? May not, but there are clear signals that there are some progressive organizations who are thinking about how to leverage AI to kind of change the way um, performance management is being done and should be done. I think the fact that, I mean, there is clearly now a growing shift from away from the annual reviews and figuring out, is there a way you can factor in continuous feedback, and especially given that the new generation, who we call the Gen Zs, they are actually not ready to wait for 6 months or 1 year for your feedback. They like immediately tell me whether I did the right thing, wrong thing, what I should work on, what's your feedback. So I think, and to be able to do that, of course, with humans being involved, I know can be a little frightening as a thought, but you can do it, by the way. You can structure it in such a way where you leverage technology and you're able to provide data-backed real-time feedback in a continuous basis. And also, we are seeing organizations that are moving from an output based to an outcome based kind of a performance management. And that's why I was so shocked and appalled by all the narratives around the fact that you work for 90 hours a week and you make India great. I think that bus has left the station honestly long ago. I think it's completely now outcome based, which means that what impact did you create, what value you added, and that's essentially where the focus is heading. And that's the reason the kind of public outcry that you've seen is because honestly, workplaces have started moving in that direction. Again, AI driven performance insight, because you can actually the so-called manager bias actually can be tackled, where you have AI as a very unbiased observer of all your metrics and data. And it's probably its ability to provide a very unbiased, objective evaluation. And that's essentially should become the basis and is becoming a basis of many performance insights. It may not be happening across many organizations, but at least I see there is a trend in that direction. And I guess personalization, we are dealing with individual. One size fits all career trajectories, honestly, is not going to work and is gradually disappearing, which means that you have to create very specific personalized growth plan. And this is exactly where you leverage tools like AI, where you do not treat everyone like with the same lens. You evaluate everyone's strengths, everyone's the need in terms of upskilling programs distinctly, rather than putting everyone in one classroom, which essentially frustrates and actually could be a reason why talent sometimes gets so jaded at workplaces. So I think, this is a subject where I can go on, where I actually think that AI actually will become at some point the performance coach and not just the evaluator in the future. The traditional ratings of 1 to 5 are definitely moving away, where now I think you will see a far more skilled based, or rather an amalgamation of a score, which is skill based assessment, which considers peer reviews. It also takes into account project evaluation, because then all the so called unsaid work that people do, how you can essentially create an evaluation metrics. Um, I think these are some of the things that honestly I'm seeing. I actually feel that performance management has always been a tricky thing, because the recency of your annual, let's say an event happened in the month of March between you and your manager, and that ends up having a huge recency effect on your annual reviews. How do you essentially tackle some of them? You had a great run all through, but you felt sick or you are unavailable, you are not optimal in 1 month. It should not affect your score, but it does today. And hence, I guess I feel technology can play a game-changing role. And Prasad, I'm sure you have insights, because that I'm hoping your tool enables organizations to do this better. So, your thoughts?
I think from our automation pain, my question to board is, what is the purpose? Is it to measure performance or ensure performance? Unfortunately, the entire activity is going on measuring performance, which is never the need of a board. They say,
Yeah.
please ensure performance. And that is what you rightly said. Personalization, AI will help you to ensure performance. And I'm a great fan saying perform. See, as a human being, we all want to be praised, but we get appraised. Nobody like to be appraised, right? So AI today will help you to beat the targets and exceed the targets. I think gone are the days where people are going to say, I'm going to rate you, I'm going to say 1 to 5. People will say, who are you? Tell me, I'm getting X, I want 2X. Let me know what should I do to get 2X. I think that is what AI is saying. How do I ensure performance rather than measure performance? So I'm a great fan saying, don't put silos and start judging people. That means you only see the irony is, we don't tell a manager who has got 20 people. We tell the manager end of the year, please rate your people. But we don't tell the manager that you make all the 20 people successful. Your job is to make all 20 A grade. That is what I think AI will help there. Yeah.
So that's where I actually have to come in. The problem is, I had this conversation with someone. He said that, look, I feel in my team, I have productive people, and I feel, look at their scores and targets, but you have a bell curve. And you are telling me I cannot have more than 2 people who's rated 4 or 5. And Abhijit, this is a real problem. I don't know whether, and this is essentially where the problem is. You're expecting me to make all my team members successful, but when it comes to rating, you want me to differentiate. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
It's like telling a cricket match, you bowl a bell curve, all the 11 players in a cricket match or a football team.
One of the design principles I like to use is to actually create continuous processes in all the things that are being done. So for example, hiring. You can't just hire when somebody's left, because then you are inevitably taking the person who's applied for you, rather than actually knowing that here are 3 people who are going to be able to do something better than what's been done. So it is a continuous process. Talk about learning. If you are going to suddenly put everybody into what I see happening in many organizations, at the year end you have a budget which is left. How do we use it? Put everybody into a training program, churn out the numbers, and then sort of say everybody went through 20 hours of training. That's actually such a fairly ineffective method of doing it. Instead, if you are able to do this on an ongoing basis, you'll find everybody's performance actually going up. So the whole process of learning, the whole process of performance management, hiring, anything that you are looking at, onboarding, all of them are things that you do on a continuous basis. Again, everybody talks about 30-day, 60-day, 90-day plans. Onboarding, I think at the end of the day, you want to not just get the person to be performing at their very best, but you also want actually the outcomes of that performance to be seen in the benefit of the organization also, you know. So if you sort of really look at the so what element of onboarding, onboarding is to make sure that somebody is really going to be able to start contributing and making the impact for which the role has been brought, created. So then if you are looking at that, I think it takes a very, very sharply different way in which we are looking at any of these HR processes, whether, and that I think is the opportunity that technology offers, not just AI, but in general, if you design it with that perspective, then I think you are really creating things which, can really make a world of a difference. How do you measure social impact of, the HR initiatives? What are social, measures? I mean, I have sort of, I can think of, you do the stakeholder survey and sort of really ask them. But are there other measures by which we can really think about measuring this impact?
I think the long tail of impact that HR does, finally, the role of HR, I mean, is in any organization. I mean, I know many people think HR has a thankless job, to be honest, and sometimes do not get as much credit for the work that they do. But the fact that you are essentially keeping a ship together within a firm, within an organization, and also the fact that all the effort that you're putting in terms of skilling, upgrading, in terms of ensuring their mental health has a impact which is beyond workplaces, which means that that feeling, that skill that you have helped them build, or that tenacity or that feeling of positivity, the confidence, is not something that is only limited to that organization. I feel that HR actually has a big role to play to kind of ensure that at large, the talent ecosystem of the country essentially is vibrant, is motivated, it's eager. So from that perspective, I feel HR has a huge contribution in terms of how at last the social ecosystem that works within a country. If I don't know whether I can make that connection, but what I feel is that that entire thing essentially is riding on the responsibility of this is riding on the shoulder of the HR fraternity. And skilling as an aspect, if I were to just call it out, Abhijit, as a single one, I mean, if you're able to successfully build a culture of skilling within an organization and learning, it has an impact which is again much, much beyond the scope of the organization. I think it helps finally always believing that the government is going to take the responsibility. Yeah, government has its own set of responsibilities in creating an ecosystem of a healthy ecosystem of learning, protecting the workforce, and so on and so forth. But we somehow do not understand or underestimate the impact the human resource or the talent custodians of organizations actually have in terms of creating that ecosystem. So I personally feel that I know we don't think much on those lines, but even wellness, for example, even if your organization invests in wellness, it's not that wellness is limited to the four corners of the organization. If you're investing in their wellness, it has impact on what happens outside of work and how they conduct themselves outside of work. So I think many of these initiatives actually has a much more wider social impact in any case than what the organization benefits from. And HR has been taking up that responsibility for as long as I can think of. Prasad, I don't know what you think of it.
No, I agree. It's much larger thing. I can slightly different additional take, not different. I think what the mistake we do is we think all employees are seekers. I think make them givers. I'll give a small example. We brought ESG into ESG is a boardroom discussion. We brought ESG into the last level people. So we created a rewards and recognition system where employees does whatever badges they get, say 1,000 points. They can buy a pizza, go for a movie, or work in a old age home for 4 hours, or give to someone like Akshay Patra. Our experience is we make people more, like I always say, when somebody gives me, I feel happy. But when I'm able to gift, I'm much happier. So as an HR, I think we should make people more happier than just happy. So we've got organ donation. And I think I'm happy to say some of our large customers are buying this logic and creating where they are able to do something for themselves, for the family, for the neighborhood, and then that is a much larger impact, social impact. No, I think that's where the culture building will come in. It's not just to say how much you're going to pay, how many incentives, and whether you build a gym or not. I think those all taken for granted. But can you make a ecosystem, a company of givers for their families, friends, and the society? Then you're building a nation. Then you build.
If an organization really works to future proof the employee, which means tomorrow, if for whatever reason the employee and the organization have to part ways, the person is able to stay employed and stays relevant. So, investing in future proofing the employee is a very powerful way to demonstrate social impact, because otherwise what happens is, when some employees are let go, they struggle to find another alternative employment. That's proof of a terrible employer. So that's my first definition. I would sort of say that extend that whole timeline. The second piece that I would sort of really say is that the ripple effect of the wellness that you create. People who enjoy their work, they are able to be innovative. They are able to do far more. And also, when they go back home, this whole notion of going back home drained and angry and frustrated and all of that, instead of that venom that you're sort of carrying back, you go back positive. That's an impact on a social system. Likewise, when that same person wants to return to work, instead of getting up in the morning and say, "Oh my God, I have to go to work today," or rather sort of saying that it's a weekend, another 2 days to go for the weekend. That mindset is indicative that there is a lot more that needs to be done. So the ability to create that is, I think, the real challenge. It's not about how do you sort of do it through tangible measures like money, etc., all of that. I mean, yes, that's necessary but not sufficient. I think the sufficiency comes when you extend the impact beyond the role to outside, beyond the time inside to outside. So, I would use that measure, but, which brings us to the end of this conversation.
Like I said, privileged to have someone like Ritu on come on share her views. Really happy from our side, Ritu. Look forward to have much more meaningful engagements. Quite a thing, lot to learn from both of you. Thank you and see you soon.
Ritu,
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. No, I think it was fantastic. I was tempted to kind of go on certain points and issues because they're so pertinent, but I'm wary of the time. And so had a lovely time and all the best to you, Prasad, and Abhijit, again, lifelong admirer. And I'm one of those learners that Abhijit has adopted long ago. So thank you so much, Abhijit. Thank you so much, Prasad.
Thank you. Thank you.
Abhijit, like we always say, Abhijit Badru's name starts with A and ends with I. So
I have AI built into my name. That's my parents thought of AI long before AI was a thing. So thank you so much for being here. Goodbye.